those of you who are managers, supervisors, leaders, team leads, have you ever struggled with knowing where the boundary ought to be between supporting a staff member and stepping too far into their personal lives? I'm going to give you some tips for how to handle this uncomfortable situation in this video. For the best research-based practical workplace advice, check out the new videos I post every week. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss a single one. I'm Dr. Erika Garms, CEO of WorkingSmarts, where I help organizations and leaders work, lead, and manage smarter using brain-friendly methods. I've helped tens of thousands of other professionals like you lower their stress, increase their productivity, using novel approaches that we know work based on research and practical application with my clients. So this might be the scenario that you've experienced. A staff member comes to you and says, look, I'm sorry, I'm not myself lately. I'm really struggling with some things at home. I'm going through a divorce. My dog just died. I'm having to figure out the right special services for my child in school. Any number of issues could be going on in their personal lives. And they're coming to you to say, which is a good thing, they trust you enough to come to you with it and say, look, this is going on for me, and I'm sorry, and I get that it's affecting my work. So what do? Do you go into the support mode where you say, oh man, that sounds really tough. I can only imagine how hard that would be and how stressful. I'm really sorry. Yeah, don't worry so much about work. We got it under control. You just take care of you, and the work will always be there. That's one approach. Another approach could be you focus primarily on the work, sort of sidelining their personal issues that they've come to you with. So that might sound something like this. I understand that you're struggling, and we all have struggles really that are going on behind the scenes. At the same time, I'm sorry that you're going through those. At the same time, we've got these expectations. I'm accountable for getting the work done as a whole team. You've got these performance expectations on your work plan that you need to make sure that you meet. So let me know if there's any way I could support you. This is where we're headed. Those are two pretty different approaches, kind of two different ends of the continuum. But there's something in the middle that I would recommend that is supported by a lot of research and practical application and testing. So it would sound something like this. Oh man, that sounds like you're really struggling, and I can only imagine how stressful that would be, added to the regular stress that we're in at work, and the external environmental stresses that are happening right now in our lives. So I hear you, and I'm wondering, do you have any supports? Do you feel like you have a decent support network? You listen. If they don't have a strong support network, or they only point to one person, maybe a friend, a spouse, a parent, another loved one, then this is an appropriate and necessary time for you to offer, not demand, but offer any EAP, employee assistance programs, that you might have as a benefit in your company or organization. They typically include a phone visit with a psychologist or a trained therapist, and often will refer to other therapists that person might want to get in touch with and interview and see if it's the right fit for them. So they can get immediate support and set up a plan for ongoing support if this is something that sounds like it would be fitting. This is not the place for you to say, oh, you're working through a divorce. Do you mind if I ask what's going on? Why are you getting divorced? Who decided to do it? And you're not sleeping very well. Have you tried chamomile tea or taking melatonin at night? So you see, you don't want to cross that boundary that is there, and it's important to recognize and respect. You don't want to cross into advice giving, absolutely. You don't want to cross into data gathering, because that is also their personal information, their private information, and you don't want to assume any liability for potentially them seeing you treating them differently in the future because of what they have divulged. Okay, so to keep yourself on the right side of respect, appropriate boundaries, and legal safety in your role as their supervisor or manager, you don't want to go there. One question that you can ask is, Are there any supports that you're looking for or that would be useful from me as your boss? Or are you asking for any accommodations? Okay, that's a key word. If they say, for example, yeah, with all this stuff going on at home, I'm really struggling with anxiety and depression right now. And I'm finding it really hard to get up in the morning. I just don't want to get out of bed. So an accommodation for more flexible time, start time and end time, would be really useful. If they ask for that, then you are obligated to pursue it and use your company's procedures for requesting an accommodation for how you respond when someone requests an accommodation. Likely they will need to bring in a doctor or therapist note supporting that accommodation is appropriate for them right now and maybe for how long. So two things: make sure they know about EAP services and offer those as a suggestion or even a strong suggestion, not a requirement tied to their job. Secondly, suss out if they're looking for an accommodation or not at this point. And thirdly, bring their attention and your attention back to their work plan, back to their performance expectations, their goals, their objectives for the year, for whatever time period you measure work and work plans in. Because you can easily get sucked into the emotion of the issues that they're struggling with and lose sight of what they're there for. This may sound harsh, but it is your job and your responsibility as a leader of that team to make sure that work is getting done, that people are performing at the level of performance that you expect and that you're paying them for. If that's not happening, you need to bring their attention and yours back to what they're able to do and what they're not accomplishing right now. So it could be that you say something like, well, I'm looking at your work plan right now, and it looks like we've got 4 projects that you've got going right now. 2 of them are quite a bit behind, and I'm wondering if this is something that you see resolving in the next 30 days, next 45 days, or if you think that that's going to be something that you aren't going to be able to attend to. And if that's the case, then I need to think, for the benefit of my team, I need to think about how else to get that work done, and we will need to think about what other work may be appropriate for you at this time. Okay, now there are lots of issues involved in this one, including whether or not your folks are unionized, including how large your team is, what kind of variation or diversity there is in job types and levels on your team, and how you measure work and delegate work. It also assumes that you have a work plan or some other document that is detailed enough that you could point to it and say, these are the 4 things that you're supposed to be working on right now, and I see that you're okay on these, not on these. This is important to cover yourself as well. If you don't bring up the fact that they have a work plan and that they have performance expectations, then down the line, if this turns into a situation where the person isn't getting the help they need, or they are seeing a therapist, but it's not resulting in increased performance, then you might be in a position where you have to start developing some kind of a performance improvement plan. Maybe on down the line, this would result in letting the person go. Okay, in order to prepare for that possibility out in the future, it's really important that you gather and document this conversation now by pointing to the performance expectations. And then remember, documentation is so important. Jot down a note about the conversation that you're having with your staff member, and at a high level, what they said they were struggling with, at a high level, what you responded with, and how you pointed to the work plan. So what were the main points of your conversation about the work plan and their performance? So you date it. Make sure you date it, because again, you want to set yourself up to have the smoothest time possible dealing with this performance issue if it doesn't resolve in the future. So yes, you're having to balance your compassion and caring for another human being who is struggling with your responsibility for making sure that work gets done for every individual and whole team. And that's not an easy balance, but it is one that is necessary. And I hope that those 3 tips can help. If you think it would be helpful to you to have a high quality management leadership development program online with group coaching offered monthly, with self-paced video lessons, with neuroscience infused materials and tip sheets along the way, then you might be interested in the Leadership Masterclass. If you want to take a look at what this includes and what the format looks like, I put a link in the video description below so you can check that out for yourself or for someone else that you might have in mind. I hope this was helpful. Take good care.